Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to part 2 of my OWLs Magical Readathon vlog. It is April 16th and it's about 7 o'clock in the morning and I'm dropping in early really quickly, and I'm sorry if there's noise in the background, but I just needed to film this intro because the days are getting away from me. You can probably see the remnants of my OWLs TBR on the shelf behind me, but as for what I'm reading, I started Sabriel yesterday. I got about 20 pages in on my lunch break and I absolutely love it so far. It is a young adult fantasy book and it focuses on necromancy, and I can just tell that the magic system is going to be incredible, and like I said, I'm loving this so far, so hopefully I finish this for the readathon. It is a fairly quick read, but because it's a novel I'm worried, but I'm sure I'll be able to get through this one. And then in addition to Sabriel, I'm also still reading Station 11 and I have an hour left of that, so I'm definitely going to finish that today. And yesterday I downloaded the audiobook for Stardust, and this is for the astronomy prompt, so I'm really hoping that I like this one. I have read Neil Gaiman before and it just didn't vibe with me. I like the premise to his books more than the execution, so I'm really hoping that I enjoy this one as well. I'm anticipating it'll be about a 3 stars and I really want it to be a higher rating than that, so stay tuned and we'll find out. I also didn't mention it before, but Sabriel is for the care of magical creatures prompt because it has a land animal on the cover. Technically it has a cat on the spine, but I'm still going to count it. And then I'll just go over the rest of my TBR really quickly, even though I know I said I wouldn't, but I may as well because it's the last vlog. So this is the herbology prompt and it is Honor Girl, which is a graphic memoir. For the Defense Against the Dark Arts prompt, I believe that is a book starting with the letter R, and for that I've got The Rivers of London, which is an adult book, and I need to check how many pages it is because in my last vlog I said that if a book was over 500 pages I wanted to count it towards my Tome Topple readathon. Even though I'm not really actively participating, it would be nice to slide a read in there. And then finally I have Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard. I don't think this will count to any of the prompts that I'm currently reading, but I did finish King's Cage, and so it would really be nice if I finished this one as well because I love to finish this series, as I said before, and I do have the audiobook, so I keep pushing it back and back because even after finishing Station 11 I thought I would start this one, but it turns out that I'm going to be starting Stardust instead. But that's a fairly short audiobook, it's about 6 or 7 hours long, so I can definitely get that done really quickly. So this one is probably about 22 hours I think, and it will take me a little bit longer, so hopefully I can finish this one as well, even though it doesn't necessarily count towards the OWLs readathon. So yes, that's it for now. Hopefully I'll finish Sabriel and Stardust this week, but I'll keep you posted of course. I don't really have anything else at the moment of note to tell you, but I am wearing a Ravenclaw top and I'll show you just like in my last vlog when I was wearing a Hogwarts shirt. Hello again, you don't get any montage because I didn't film any clips, so I'm just going to dive right in and say that it is April 18th and it's about 7 o'clock in the morning. I have a couple of updates for you. So I finished a few things, I started some things, and I got a few things in the mail, so I thought I'd update it all at once. So first of all, I'm still reading Sabriel. I haven't got very far in this, I'm about 35 pages. I really like the necromancy in it though, and I'm really keen to continue reading it this weekend. I have tomorrow off because of the Easter long weekend, so I can't wait to finish this one on the weekend. I'm assuming I will because I'll have some downtime to read. And then I ended up finishing Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and I don't know whether to give it a 3.5 stars or a 4 stars because I really liked the last half a lot better than the first half. It dealt a lot with morality and the human condition when it came to the apocalypse and losing people and relying on fantasy to get yourself through things, and how it would kind of turn people really crazy or drive them to meet up and connect with other people and use their imaginations for good. That doesn't really make a lot of context or sense without reading the book, but I did like it. But it's kind of one of those books that I read like and then move on from. It's not like it will stick with me for ages. Maybe in the future I will reread it, but that won't happen for a very long time. And then because I finished that one on audiobook, I jumped straight into Stardust by Neil Gaiman, and the really cool thing about this audiobook is the fact that Neil Gaiman actually narrated it himself, and he's got a brilliant narration and I loved that, but I actually didn't love the book as much as I thought. Earlier on I did say that I predicted this to be a 3-star read because I can't quite get on board with his writing. His writing is great, but it's not really to my taste, and I'm not quite sure why I can't connect with it. I felt the same with Norse mythology and American Gods by him, and now that I've read 3 different kinds of book by him, I think I need to call it and go, I don't like Neil Gaiman's writing even though I really want to, and stop trying to read his work. I do know that he wrote a couple of episodes of Doctor Who though, and I'm pretty sure I've seen those even though I can't individually name what they are. I feel like I was watching Doctor Who at the time that he wrote those, so I would have enjoyed his episodes on Doctor Who. I just don't enjoy his books or novels as much. I honestly can't tell you why. But regardless, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars, and I finished astrology for my OWLs exam. Also for station 11, I didn't actually say, but that fulfilled the read an adult book for charms, so I finished the charms subject as well. And then finally for my TBR update, I downloaded the audiobook for Rivers of London, and this is the Defense Against the Dark Arts read, so that prompt is read a book starting with R. This is also an adult book, and it's an urban fantasy, and it's about a detective, and he discovers that there's a whole underground system of magic that exists, and he really wants to learn it. So I think that's kind of what happens. He starts learning magic from this old wizard. I was also hoping that this would be about 500 pages because of Tome Topple, but it's 390, so it's shorter than 400 pages, which is what I thought it would at least be. So at least it's not as long as I thought it would be. The audiobook is about 10 hours long, so I can just squeeze it into this readathon, I think. I also got some cool bookish mail. So first of all, I got The Secret History by Brandon Sanderson, and that's one of his short stories. It's in the Arcanum Unbounded collection, but it's also obviously sold separately. I don't have the physical copy on me because Dave wanted to read it and has taken it to work, but I did get that one in the mail, and that is set after the second era of Mistborn books. So it's The Final Empire, The Well of Ascension, The Hero of Ages, and then it's Alloy of Law, Shadows of Self, Bands of Mourning, and then it is The Secret History. Because if you read The Secret History without knowing Mistborn, it's going to really spoil you, so would not recommend doing that. But I've already read it, I really enjoyed it, and obviously it's Brandon Sanderson, which is one of my favourite authors, so I just bought it to add to my collection because the Pretty UK hardcover came out, so I now have that one. And I also have volume 8 of Fruits Basket, and I got this in the mail recently as well. I'm not up to this volume yet. I've read volume 6 and I have volume 7 on my TBR, but when I read these, I tend to read them when I'm in the mood for something lighthearted and contemporary, and this is a manga if I hadn't already stated that, but this is one of my favourite mangas. I read it when I was in high school and when I was about 15 or 16, and I've been rereading it recently and rediscovering how much I love it. So I thought I'd just stock up on a couple of volumes so that when I finally get back in the mood to read something cute and fluffy, they would be waiting for me. So I got this one in the mail too. And then finally I also got this package from a publisher, and I don't know what it is. I'm not expecting it, so I thought I'd open it and see what it is on camera. This is a July proof called Whisper of the Gods, and it looks like an adult fantasy book, which is really interesting. It comes from Bloomsbury, so thank you very much, Bloomsbury. The tagline on this is "When gods fail, who will keep the darkness out?" which sounds really cool. So after my OWLs TBR, I'm going to check this one out. This sounds actually really awesome. I don't know when it comes out though. Okay, the spine says July, but that's the UK date, so the actual release date in Australia is the 5th of August, so I do have a little bit of time to read this one. So that is my update for now. I'm going to head off to work now and listen to Rivers of London, which I hope that I really enjoy, and I will catch you in my next clip. So the Easter long weekend happened and I'm still reading Sabriel. I didn't end up finishing this one, but what can you do? I'm 46 pages into this one and it is the 25th of April. It's about almost 10 in the morning and I really need to finish this in the next couple of days if I want it to count to the OWLs Readathon. So hopefully I can make a little bit more progress on this one. On the 30th of April, which is the last day of this readathon, I have a book launch for Aurora Rising that night. So I really need to finish up whatever I'm reading before I go to that book launch because I want to pick up Aurora Rising straight after the launch. So whatever I'm reading at that time will probably get put down if I'm not finished it yet, because obviously I want to finish Aurora Rising as soon as possible because I'm really anticipating that book. It was on my anticipated releases video and I love Amy and Jay, so I can't wait to read that one obviously. I'm barely 10% through on this one and I also have a couple of other reads for my OWLs Readathon that I haven't finished yet. I have Sweet Tooth Volume 3 and this counted towards the read a book with red on the cover prompt and I can't remember what subject that is for, so I'll put it on the screen. And then I also have On a Girl, and this is a graphic memoir that I was going to read for herbology because it has little trees on the back and herbology needed the prompt of having stuff to do with nature on the cover, so it definitely works for this prompt, but I don't know if I'm going to get around to reading this. I might finish Sweet Tooth, but I'm not really sure how that's going to go, so We'll definitely find out. And then lastly for my OWLs Readathon, I actually finished Rivers of London, which I'm very happy about. This is an adult urban fantasy. It follows Peter Grant and he is a copper. He gets involved with a murder investigation and it ends up being intertwined with magic, and he sees a ghost that gives him some clues. So he ends up finding a mentor in the police department that teaches him how to do magic, and it's a really interesting premise and a really interesting world. Obviously it's set in London, which I really loved, and the voice narrator was really great. It really gave me a sense of atmosphere, which I really enjoyed. Something about this did fall a little bit flat for me, so I couldn't give it a 5 stars, but I did give it a 4 out of 5 and I really liked it. The plot kind of just ambled along for me. It didn't hold as much tension as I wanted it to hold, but I did really like the voice of the character and I really enjoyed the story overall, so that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. But that is my defense against the dark arts prompt finished, because that was read a book starting with the letter R. And then finally, it has taken me long enough because I keep putting it off in this vlog, but I started the audiobook for Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard, and this is the last book in her Red Queen series, and I started the audiobook yesterday and I'm about 3% into it. So I've barely started it, but at least I've made some headway on it. And this is definitely over 500 pages, so it would count to Tome Topple, but Tome Topple finishes in like 2 or 3 days, so I'm definitely not going to finish that in 2 or 3 days, but oh well. I can't even say I tried. I wanted to say, oh well, I tried, but I didn't really try for Tome Topple, so we'll just have to let that one pass for this round. Maybe I can participate next time. So that's pretty much an update of my reading. Currently reading Sabriel physically, currently listening to Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard, wanting to pick up Sweet Tooth and Honor Girl, and then I'll pick up Aurora Rising on April 30th. That is what is ahead of me for the next 5 or so days, because it is the 25th today, and I can't believe April has gone so fast and this readathon is almost over, but I've read so much that I'm very proud of what I've actually achieved in this readathon. I think I've definitely read more than what I would have read on my own, so I'm pretty happy with my progress so far. And then finally I actually got a package in the mail, so this isn't really bookish related because it's Black Milk, but I wanted to share it anyway because I really like unboxing stuff on camera. So I ended up getting 2 things from Black Milk. So the first thing I got is actually a black matte wifey top, it's what it's called. I'll put a photo on the screen so you can see what it looks like, but it's like a tight, almost half singlet, and it goes to about your belly button, and then I got a pair of high-waisted pants to go with it. So this is the wifey top. It is very, very small. And then the pants that I got with it, I think the print is called Garden of the Dead, and they're covered in flowers, but they have skulls on them too, and they just look really, really cool. Look at how awesome these are. I hope they fit because I got a smaller size because they changed their sizing, so I need to try this on and test to see if it fits. So I'll probably insert some footage of me doing a try on. They're so pretty. And also, just before I go, I'm actually wearing dark mark leggings today, so I just want to show them off before I jump into my try on footage and then into a montage. So hello, it is April 30, which means it is the last day of the OWLs Readathon, so it is around 7 AM and I just wanted to update you because I know that I'm not going to be doing much reading today. I will read a couple of pages on my lunch break and I will listen to Warstorm, which is my current read, on audiobook. But apart from that, I do have the Aurora Rising launch tonight, so I definitely won't be reading tonight. So unfortunately, I didn't finish Sabriel by Garth Nix. I do have 150 pages left of this one, so if I'm really, really stubborn, I can get through this before I start Aurora Rising, and I'll be picking up a copy of that tonight, so we'll see how that goes. I do have my socials linked down below, so you can definitely see and poke around and check whether I actually stuck to what I said I was going to do, but hopefully I do finish Sabriel first. Unfortunately, I didn't finish Care of Magical Creatures. I failed that OWL exam, and I'm sorry, Hagrid, you must be ashamed of me. Since we last spoke, I actually finished 2 things. So I finished Sweet Tooth, which was my prompt for Transfiguration, and that was read something with a red cover or red spread edges, and I kind of vaguely cheated on this one, but he does have red plate on the cover, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I really loved how dark and gritty this series is getting, and I really enjoy the characters that we're exploring, and I can't wait to get the rest of these volumes. I know there are only 6, so I'm technically now halfway through this series, which I'm really happy about. A book that I'm not as happy about is Honor Girl, and this is a graphic memoir. I read it recently. I gave it about a 3 out of 5 stars. It was decent, but not something that I'm really keen on. It was about a girl who went to summer camp and realised that she was gay, and it was a very conservative summer camp that she was on with a group of only girls. So You can see why it might have been a risk for her to be gay on this summer camp, but it was kind of mixed with a coming out story and a romance, but the romance didn't really go anywhere, so I was a little bit disappointed with that. I don't really know what else to say. The art style was okay. I got this from a friend's unhaul, so I don't think I'll be keeping it myself, but it was nice for what it was, and it was just an experience. That was my prompt for herbology because it's got trees on the back of the cover, so that counts towards my read a book with trees on the cover prompt. I'm going to be talking about my other reads all out of order, but I read Stardust by Neil Gaiman, and I did talk about this a little bit longer earlier in my vlog, but I didn't enjoy this as much as I thought. I gave it about a 3 out of 5 stars as well. I did say that I wanted to stop reading Neil Gaiman because I've tried a couple of his work and I just didn't get on board with it, but I did realise that he has some non-fiction, so I might inquire into that and see if that's more up my alley, because I really value his voice and I really enjoy the experience he has, because I feel like he's very well rounded, so I don't want to let him go off my radar completely. So even though I didn't enjoy Stardust, I will probably pick up something in his non-fiction section. And this counted towards the prompt of astrology, which was read a book with star in the title. Next I've got Rivers of London by Ben Arrow, and I can never say his name. I listened to this one on audiobook. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and this was about a detective, and it's an urban fantasy, and it's also an adult book. So this could have counted to Charms, which was read an adult book, but I actually counted it to my Defense Against the Dark Arts read, which was read a book starting with the letter R. And I really liked this one. I can't wait to continue the series. It's not going to be like a high priority to continue the series, but this has been on my TBR for a few years now, so I'm really glad that it's just not sitting on my shelf anymore. This is basically about a detective and he learns magic, and that's kind of what you need to know. He learns magic, he investigates crimes, he solves murders. Pretty cool. I also read King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard, and this is the second last book in her Red Queen series, and I'm really proud that I'm getting through this series because I'm reading Warstorm on audiobook right now and I'm about a third of the way through. But this one was a bit of a letdown for me. I did give the first book 5 stars and I really loved it, but the second book I gave about a 4 stars, and then this one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. So the series has kind of slowly been tanking for me, which is a shame. The premise of this really did hook me though. It is X-Men, it is set in a young adult fantasy world, and it's a rebellion story, and it kind of started to subvert a couple of tropes in the first book, but it hasn't really done that since. I found some of the characters very bratty and they just weren't really self-aware, which really frustrates me in a book. If you're going to do things, at least be self-aware and learn from yourself and learn from the situations that you're in, because they're kind of dire situations that are of life and death. It's not like they're just having an interaction and then going to school. But this one satisfied the prompt for potions, which was next ingredient, read a sequel, and this was definitely a sequel. Next, this was one of the first books that I read for this readathon, and it is X-Men Volume 1 Gifted, and this I read for the History of Magic prompt because this was published about 10 years ago, and I liked this one again, but I didn't give it a 5 out of 5, I gave it a 4 out of 5. It did allude to a few previous volumes or previous series that I haven't read yet, even though this was technically volume 1. Obviously the Marvel Universe interlinks so much, so I didn't quite get on board with what was going on in here because I didn't have the background to a lot of the characters, but regardless I did like the story and I'm keen to continue. Again, like some of the others I've mentioned in this wrap up, it's not going to be like a high priority, but I am keen on continuing it regardless. So I gave this one a 5 out of 5. History of Magic exam complete. And then lastly, for my physical reads that I've got with me, I have the last volume of Saga. So this is volume 9, and I know the author's on a hiatus, so the next volume isn't coming out for a while, but I read this one and it was my only 5-star read of the entire readathon. No wait, that's a lie. I gave one of my audiobooks 5 stars, but I'll talk about that in a moment. This was my only physical read of 5 stars. I should say. I swapped this into my TBR instead of reading a 400-page book, which I think was a smart choice. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have finished Divination, which is the prompt that this is for, because Divination's like read a sci-fi or futuristic kind of read. This absolutely broke my heart like I expected, and I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favourite graphic novel series, so I'd highly recommend jumping on board with this one. I know it's hyped up a lot, but it is hyped up for good reason, so definitely jump onto it. After reading this one, I really want to go back and reread all of them in the series, so this definitely re-sparked my love for it. And then the last 2 books that I'm going to talk about are both audiobooks. So first of all, I finished Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and that was an adult dystopian book. It went more into what humanity would do creatively and how they would band together or kind of go crazy in an apocalyptic situation, rather than focusing on the survival aspect of the apocalypse, which was a bit of a different take, and At first I didn't really like it that much. It did take me a little bit to get on board with because it flashed forward and backward in time to show the characterization and the build up of where different characters ended up and their trajectory. I did end up liking it and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Because it was an audiobook, I obviously don't have a physical copy, so it's not one that I just have on my shelf and I'll probably pick up again later and reread. It was kind of just a book that I came across, I read it and enjoyed it and then moved on. It wasn't something that left a huge impact for me, but maybe if I reread it when I'm a bit older as well, it might have more of an impact on me. So I read Station 11 for my Charms prompt because Charms was read an adult book. And then finally on audiobook I read Sadie by Courtney Summers, and that was a young adult contemporary book following Sadie, who investigates the murder of her sister. It's kind of told in a true crime podcast as well as Sadie's narration, and so that counted towards my Muggle Studies prompt, and I finished that one. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. If it wasn't an audiobook I probably would have given it 4 or 4.5 stars. I did kind of see a few things coming, but for the most part it really did surprise me, which I liked a lot. And that was all for my OWLs Readathon TBR. I managed to get through 9 out of the 10 things that I wanted to read, which I'm really proud of actually. I didn't think that I'd get through that many in this month, but a lot of them were comic books, which I want to say is cheating, but I also don't want to say is cheating because all of them were technically on my TBR, so I think I'm, for the most part, won this readathon, which I'm really happy about. I'm also kind of sad that this readathon is over because it has been motivating me to read so much, but tomorrow I'm starting an online course, and so I know that my spare time, instead of going to reading, is going to be going to study and revising for my course. So I want to do more reading vlogs, but I don't know how they'll turn out if I'm doing an online course instead. I might just do some more targeted reading vlogs, like I want to reread some of my favourites and then do reading vlogs about those as I re-experience them, but that might be a next year thing rather than a this year thing, because I want to get my TBR down as much as I possibly can this year so that I can prepare to do some rereads next year and not feel too guilty about it. But yeah, as far as the readathon goes, that is it. If you participated in the OWLs Readathon, let me know how many books you read below. Let me know how many OWLs exams you passed. I can't wait to participate in the Newts Readathon later this year because that is just going to be so much more fun. I loved this readathon. I loved wearing all of my Harry Potter stuff. I'm wearing my invisibility cloak right now, and it was just a lot of fun. I loved interacting with everyone, and I think G tweeted that we've read more than 2 million books or 2 million pages. That was on her Twitter, on the Magical Readathon Twitter, and that is just incredible to me. What a sense of community. I love this readathon. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll chat to you in the comments and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!